Hey everyone, my name is Mirai and welcome to the ISBoxer 42 post setup video for Rift. This video has been broken into multiple parts, making it easier to navigate or quickly reference his section, as well as come back at any time to just pick up where you left off. The content in this video assumes you've at least completed the ISBoxer quick setup wizard and have successfully logged a character set into the game world, which is capable of properly following and assisting each other. If you haven't, then I'll recommend watching the prior video, which covers the basic setup, before watching this one. I'd also like to point out that I have an older video series which is still full of useful information when it comes to multi-boxing MMORPGs. Some of its configuration is slightly outdated, but the vast majority of information is still relevant. So if you want more after watching this, then I'd suggest checking out that multi-part series as well. And as always, if you need further assistance with ISBoxer, then please visit the ISBoxer forum or the live chat. At a glance, ISBoxer looks to be quite overwhelming, but like anything else, once you're familiar with it, then it becomes much easier to use or navigate or set up. So I'd like to take some time to browse through ISBoxer, point out some of the important areas while maybe giving a few tips along the way. Starting at the top, you can see your list of characters, which you've created in ISBoxer. Clicking on any character will show you what is assigned to them in the lower left. And while there are several additional settings in the lower right, most of them go unused for games other than those developed by Blizzard Entertainment. So actual character name, game server, account name, sub-account name, all of these are unused for non-Blizzard games. However, it can be useful to know that both the game and game profile are listed here, so if you do need to make changes to either of those, then this is where you would do that. Alright, so after that we're going to move all the way down to window layouts. In this first section, you can adjust the swapping behavior of your region. So you can choose what ISBoxer should do when you want to focus on a particular slot in your character set. Everything from disabling swapping altogether to only having it happen when a certain condition is met, as well as adjusting the mouse click behavior when focusing a region. Now, what I really want to talk about is the regions section, where you can view your full window layout and make changes to it if necessary. In here, you can freely drag regions around, which you may have already tried to do during the wizard setup, but were unable to. So if you wanted to quickly reposition a region to another part of your monitor layout, then that's something you could easily do here. However, I'd recommend not manually adjusting the size of your regions or making any other major changes to your window layout in this section unless you're familiar with what you're doing. And I'd recommend either rerunning the window layout wizard if you'd like to create a new layout for a character set, or if you're looking to set up something which is a bit more advanced, then I'd suggest stopping by the ISBoxer forum to ask for advice on how to do that. Now, finally, I want to quickly touch on virtual files. A virtual file is a copy of another file, and ISBoxer makes copies of your main configuration file so that each character has their very own. For Rift, these are the files that it makes copies of, and these copies not only allow you to store multiple logins so that you aren't constantly having to type in your login information every time you launch your team, but it also allows you to keep character-specific settings in-game, which is useful when it comes to something like video settings, where a lot of people run higher settings on their lead character and lower settings on the others. Now, this was just a very quick example of how virtual files work, but you can make copies of any other file or folder that you'd like to keep specific to either one or several characters. So that's it for the brief overview, but there are several other sections of ISBoxer which can be very useful, such as action target groups, click bars, menus, and whatnot, but not necessary for getting started. I'll be touching on key maps, mapped keys, and parts of your character set in another section of this video, so I will be skipping those for now, but this does conclude the Exploring ISBoxer section of the video. Character sets are the core of ISBoxer, and as with any core, there's usually some other information or settings that revolve around it. The Quick Setup Wizard will automatically assign everything required to get you started, but what if you want to make changes to some of that? Well, let's say you have multiple window layouts in your profile and you want to assign a different one to your character set. So, with that particular character set selected in the upper left pane, you can click, hold, and drag the new window layout down into the lower left, and then when you release the mouse button anywhere in the lower left area, the new window layout is then assigned to this character set, and you'll be good to go after you export your settings. Now, the same goes for characters in your character set as well. If you want to change out a particular character within a character set, simply select the character set, as before, and then, once again, click, hold, and drag the character down into the lower left pane. But this time, hover over the slot number you wish to place the character in before releasing your mouse button. Character swapped out, and you're good to go. Now, this is how you can assign anything to a character set. However, at times you may be assigning a lot of something and you may want to do it a bit faster. So, for example, Key maps can be assigned either by dragging and dropping them like I just showed, or you can also click on the key map node in the lower left area of the character set options, and then either select or deselect key maps you wish to assign. Just like that. And this method works for menus as well as click bars. Now, what's also configurable in your character set is the in-game ISBoxer GUI toggle hotkey, which will toggle the in-game GUI on and off, as well as the video effects focus hotkey, which will allow you to swap your focus to a game client by clicking on its video effects viewer using this key combination. Now, if you're just watching this video immediately after the first one, then you may not have dealt with either of these at this time, and this is more of a just know that these are here type of thing. Now, in addition to those, I'll point out that you can quickly swap to a particular slot using the slot swap hotkey assigned to it. When clicking on a slot number, you will see that there is a hotkey to switch to this particular character, and the default is Control-Alt-Number, where number is the slot number you want to swap to. The other important bit of information listed under each specific slot is the slot ID or FTL modifiers. Each slot of your character set is assigned a unique modifier by ISBoxer, and these are important to know when setting up follow and assist macros, which I talk about more in the expanding follow and assist section of this video. Now, other than that, you can manually adjust the performance and core assignment of each individual slot of your character set, whitelist or blacklist certain key maps for the entire character set, and then you can adjust some of the core functionality of your character set on the Virtual Mapped Keys tab. For Rift players, it's highly unlikely you will ever need to adjust anything other than the Auto Assist Me setting in this tab. But in order to do so, you would click on the setting you'd like to change on the right-hand side, ensure that the proper key map is set in the top field, which for the default wizard settings would be the ISB42 party key map, and then change the mapped key below that to what you'd like it to be. You can see the list is broken up into sections, and each mapped key is labeled so that you don't accidentally assign one which is unrelated. For this auto assist setting, we set it up so that our characters will always auto assist our main character when attacking. But in this case, if you didn't want it to work like that, you'd completely remove the entry, hit OK, and your characters would no longer automatically assist your leader. Now, all of this that you see here is what's known as virtualization, and while it may look to be advanced, it's not once you get the hang of it. It's okay to not completely understand how this area of the program works, but if you need further explanation on any of this, then again, please come to the ISBoxer forum for further support. And this concludes the Your Character Set section of the video. I briefly touched on both key maps and mapped keys in the prior video, but I'd like to elaborate a bit on this topic, as well as show what mapped keys can do and the basics on how to set them up. However, this will still be a fairly brief overview since both key maps and mapped keys can be quite complex. First and foremost, a key map is just a collection of mapped keys. Nothing more, nothing less, and they don't have anything to do with any sort of conditions in game. For example, there are key maps with the word combat in their name, but they don't only work when you're in combat, it's merely a label. If we didn't have key maps, then all of our mapped keys would be in one long list, and I would imagine it'd be quite confusing and tedious to navigate, so they're split up and they're organized into key maps. Now, to quickly recap, I mentioned in the prior video that the only key maps you really need to worry about when starting out are always on, base hotkeys, combat broadcast hotkeys, and custom hotkeys. These are the 4 key maps which will contain mapped keys that you'd want to set hotkeys for, and again, hotkeys are like key bindings in ISBoxer. So, for example, the hotkeys which are assigned to both follow and assist are located in the base hotkeys key map. In order to change them, you can click on the mapped key and then pick a different one using the hotkey picker in the lower right. Personally, I tend to set both follow and assist to buttons on my mouse which are easier for me to press, but you can assign them to whatever you'd like. Now, the setting below the hotkey is what's normally referred to as the hold option. When enabled, any keystroke action will be held down while the hotkey is held down, which is generally useful when dealing with mapped keys based around character movement. Then, underneath the hold option is the setting for when to execute each step of a mapped key. This can be set to execute when you press the key, release the key, or both, but while the hold option is enabled, this setting cannot be adjusted and is ignored. Now, if we take a look at the step of this mapped key, we are greeted with even more information. This is what would be considered the heart of the mapped key, if you will, where the actions are stored. ISBoxer's mapped keys are capable of 40 different actions, and you can see the full list by right-clicking on the actions node itself. While it may seem overwhelming that you might have to learn all of this, I can assure you that it's highly unlikely you'll ever need all of these, as most fill a fairly niche part of the multiboxing player base, but it just goes to show you how configurable ISBoxer really is. Anyway, in addition to those actions, there are these step-specific settings near the top, and you can also click on any action which will give you access to its settings as well. Now, I don't want to delve too deep into configuring a mapped key beyond this, as this was just meant to be a bit of an introduction. So I'm going to stop myself here and move on to the next section of mapped keys that I'd like to talk about, which is how to configure additional keys for you to use with your character set. If you have further questions about how mapped keys work, then again, please reference further documentation dedicated to mapped keys or stop by the ISBoxer forum. So, the Quick Setup Wizard will, by default, automatically create mapped keys for 1 through equals on your keyboard's number row with optional modifiers, and those can be seen in this key map here. If you didn't choose to set up 1 through equals with Shift, Alt, or Control during the wizard, you can easily just set hotkeys for any of these that you'd like, and they'll work just like any other. Now, if you want to add additional mapped keys beyond what's already been set up, then you can easily do so. Under the Wizard's menu, there is an option for the Mapped Key Wizard. On the first step of the wizard, you'll choose where you want to place the mapped keys you're about to create. I'll recommend putting them in base hotkeys, combat broadcast hotkeys, or the custom hotkeys key map, but not always on. If you put something in always on, it will always be enabled and cannot be disabled with the standard toggle for key maps. So, for this example, I'll choose combat broadcast hotkeys. On step 2, you'll choose what type of mapped key you'd like to create. There are several different types which the wizard can set up, and many more which it cannot, but for simply wanting to broadcast keystrokes to your other game clients, you want to use the straight key broadcast, assist and broadcast, or round-robin key broadcast options. For this example, I'm going to be setting up extra keys that I can use for combat, so I'll choose assist and broadcast because I want the optional auto assist. On the third step is where you can begin adding in additional keys. Just click in the area near the top and start pressing keys on your keyboard or buttons on your mouse. If you happen to make a mistake and you want to remove any of them from the list, simply click on them and press the delete key. Now, once you've got all the keys you want added to the list, you can then pick a target for them. In ISBoxer, a target is normally one or more of the game windows, and for beginners, you'll usually only be picking from one of the first 3 options near the top. So, window current means only the current game window that you're focused on and playing from. All without current means all of your game windows except the one that you're currently playing from. And all with current means all of your game windows with no exceptions. I'm looking to match the settings that the other combat map keys have, so I'm going to use all with current. Below that, you can choose which assist method to use, but you shouldn't need to change that unless you have a specific reason to. Underneath this is the option to add in the additional interact, which for Rift is unnecessary to adjust because of the way that the feature is implemented into the game, so it can be left as is. And then below that, you can choose whether you want the mapped keys to fire off when you press the hotkey, release the hotkey, or both. Again, the default option is usually fine. So hit finish, and then we can check to see what's been created. Here at the bottom of the list are our newly created mapped keys, and we can check to see what the actions in it look like. At the top of the list, there is one do mapped key action, which is for the assist, and it's created in such a way that it does not affect any characters in your character set unless it's set up to do so. And this is explained a bit more in the Your Character Set section of this video. But below that is a basic keystroke action which uses the target we chose, all with current, and it's sending, in this case, the Q key to that same target. So, we're pressing Q, and we're sending Q, with an optional auto assist, which is configured within the Virtual Mapped Keys tab of our character set. Now, these are pretty much the basics of a mapped key and how it's broken down, but please feel free to refer to further documentation or visit the ISBoxer forum if you have any additional questions. But this does conclude the Key Maps and Mapped Keys section of the video. In the Quick Setup Wizard video, I showed how to write the macros required for following and assisting when playing from only the character in slot 1, but you can expand upon that macro to include your entire team. In order to do so, it helps to understand how it's configured under the hood in ISBoxer. So first, think back to the final step of the Quick Setup Wizard where I pointed out that the follow and assist mode should be set to the slot ID modifiers option, and that both F11 and F12 were the keys used for follow and assist respectively. Then, in the Your Character Set section of this video, I pointed out that there are slot ID modifiers listed under each slot of your character set, and that the modifiers assigned there are unique to each of those slots. When you see this information laid out like this, it might begin to make a little bit more sense. We took this information and we wrote the base macros required for both follow and assist when playing from the character in slot 1 of the character set. You can see that slot 1 uses the shift modifier, and that's the conditional we used when writing out those two macros. We then assign the follow macro to F11 and the assist macro to F12. So with this information, the follow and assist macros will be broken down exactly like this for a 5-man team. Now, just as an example, these are my full party macros used for both follow and assist for my particular character set used in the prior video. And you can see that the character names of each slot match up with the slot ID modifiers. If you follow this exact format, then you can expand upon your own follow and assist macros in-game in the exact same way. Now, if you want to know how ISBoxer works its magic in this area, then you had better strap in because it's about to get a bit more technical. I mentioned in the prior video that ISBoxer doesn't know anything beyond what you tell it, and this is still true, because in this case, we're telling it to add in those slot ID modifiers from the character set into this action using this setting here. This particular action shown here is a variable keystroke, so if we take a look at the follow FTL variable keystroke, we'll see that it's assigned to F11. Remember, slot ID modifier plus F11 for follow. We saw that on the final step of the wizard. Now, the full breakdown of this is fairly complicated, regardless of whether you're new to ISBoxer or not, but it looks something like this, and I'll just use the follow setup as an example. So the mapped key for follow is located in base hotkeys, and by default is configured for Alt-F. When pressing this hotkey, the single do-mapped key action inside of it is told to fire off the follow me active method mapped key. But, and this is where things get complex, it's being virtualized on the virtual mapped keys tab of the character set, which means it's being told to fire off something different. In this case, the mapped key which is listed to the right of it. In that particular mapped key, we're back here looking at the variable keystroke for follow FTL, which we already know is assigned to F11. But because we're adding in the FTL modifiers from the active slot, which for this example we'll use slot 1, means we're sending shift plus F11, and we're sending it to the target listed here, which is basically all without current. So if we press Alt-F when playing from slot 1, ISBoxer has been told to remap that and turn it into shift plus F11, which is being sent to the rest of the team. And as we already configured in game, our follow macro is assigned to F11, and the follow line for the shift conditional is pointing at the character who resides in slot 1. It's so simple when you see it broken down like this. At this point, if you change slots, then the only thing that changes here is going to be the modifier that is sent. If you swap to slot 2 and you press Alt-F, then Alt-F11 will be sent to the rest of your team instead. And the follow macro should have an alt conditional listed in there, which is pointing at the character who resides in slot 2. Now, for those of you who might be skeptical, I'd like to point out that ISBoxer isn't doing this in real time, and all of this is set up for you whenever you export your settings. You can certainly set this up manually if you'd like, but it's a long and tedious process, and it's not something I'd ever recommend, which is why, by simply enabling the setting to add in the active slot modifiers, ISBoxer is essentially writing out a bunch of mapped keys for you, but it does so behind the scenes when you export your settings. While this might seem overly complicated for something as simple as a basic follow and assist setup, it's configured in such a way so that it's more universal than just being hard-coded to work with a single character or even just a single game, and it's things like these which set ISBoxer apart from anything else. So that's how you extend the functionality of your follow and assist macros to work for your entire team, and if you need further assistance with this, then I suggest stopping by the ISBoxer forum for further support. But this does conclude the expanding follow and assist section of the video. ISBoxer can provide players with an in-game action bar overlay so that they can click the abilities on their action bar in addition to using hotkeys. On the final step of the Quick Setup Wizard, there's an option to add in the overlay to your character set, and while there's an image to the right of the option depicting what it is, it's much better understood once you see it in game. Enabling the option will give you a set of 12 green buttons floating on top of your game client, and these buttons will allow you to click on them with your mouse to send keystrokes to your other characters, the same way that pressing hotkeys, which are assigned to mapped keys, do, but the buttons also provide visual feedback when pressing their assigned hotkey. This overlay is meant to be placed over the in-game action bar, but it certainly doesn't have to be in order to work properly since it's not sending mouse clicks, it's sending keystrokes. So, in order to move it, first open up the ISBoxer in-game GUI using Ctrl-Shift-Alt-G, and then just drag the menu via its title bar over to where it needs to be. If it doesn't fit nicely, I'll show how to fix that in a moment, but assuming it does, press Sync on either the title bar of the menu or the in-game GUI itself so that its position is synced across each of the characters in your character set. Then, in the in-game GUI, ensure you're on the Menu tab, and hit the Save All Menu Positions button so that you won't have to reposition the overlay each time you launch this particular character set. And that's it. If you chose to enable 1 through equals with additional modifiers, then you can just position them one at a time, sync them, and then save them. Now, in the event that the overlay doesn't fit perfectly over your in-game action bar, you can adjust several settings in the menu template to fix that. In ISBoxer, expand the menus tree in the upper left pane and click on the ISB42 standard menu, or whichever other menu you're looking to make changes to. In the lower right, you can see which template, hotkey set, and button set are attached to this menu, so that you know which of these to adjust in order to make the proper changes. In addition to that, you can see the menu's starting position, which lets you know where the menu will first appear on newly created character sets. If you'd like to skip using the in-game GUI to adjust the position of the menu for all newly created character sets, then you can change these on-screen coordinates. It might be tricky to first figure out which X and Y coordinate to use, but there's no harm in simply making a guess, exporting your settings, and then repeating that until you get it right. Anyway, this menu uses the standard template, which means I can click on the word standard in the lower left pane under the template section, and that will bring up a new set of options in the lower right. Feel free to experiment with any of these, but if you're looking to resize the menu, then the margin and the width and the height values are likely going to be the ones you're looking to adjust. If the buttons themselves are too large, then the width and the height values are the ones you'll want to change. But if the buttons are too close or too far apart, then the margin setting will modify that. You may need to adjust both sets of values in order to get the buttons to align nicely, but again, it's usually done by guessing, exporting, checking to see what they look like in game, and then repeating the process until you have a result that you're satisfied with. Now, if you're looking to either remove or attach a particular menu to a character set, it's as simple as selecting the character set you wish to make the change on, and in the lower left pane, clicking on the menu's node. Then, in the lower right, either select or deselect a particular menu. And when you click away from the node, the list will update. Also, if you want these newly added menus to respond to keys rather than just clicks, then you will need to set the hotkeys for the applicable mapped keys located in the Combat Hotkeys key map if you haven't done so already. Finally, if you'd like to change the key which is used for a particular button, then there are a few areas which you'll need to adjust. First, locate the menu in question and determine which hotkey and button set it's using. In the hotkey set, you can easily adjust the hotkeys which are tied to each button, and the hotkey assignments from top to bottom affect the menu buttons from left to right in a standard horizontal layout. However, this step can be skipped if you don't use hotkeys and only click the buttons. Then, in the button set, select the button you'd like to adjust and make note of the key map and mapped key which it's pointed at. All wizard-generated action bar overlay menu buttons will be pointing at the ISB42 Combat Broadcast key map. Next, locate the mapped key and adjust the keystroke action to send the key that you want. Finally, in the Combat Broadcast Hotkeys key map, adjust the hotkey for the matching mapped key that you just made a change to. Again, this step is not necessary if you only click the buttons and do not use hotkeys. Now, with the changes I just made, when I press the Q key on my keyboard, or when I click the first button of that menu, Q is going to be sent to my characters. Menus themselves can be as simple as what the wizard sets up, or as intricate as you can almost imagine. But if you need further assistance with menus, then please visit the ISBoxer forum. And this concludes the Action Bar Overlay section of the video.